everyone, I'm Jacob Skuchis, and this is my project for CITN 280 IT Security Foundations. This presentation will be a role play of a meeting where I am the IT guy telling you why our organization should use the technology, and you are the person who has the power to approve implementing the technology in our organization. Also, before we begin, my sources will be in the description of this video. Now with that out of the way, let's begin with the presentation. Hello, thank you for your time today. I'm going to tell you why our organization should require employees to use authenticator apps to improve our security. First, let's begin with some background information about authentication. So what is multi-factor authentication? Well, it's requiring multiple forms of authentication before you can access an account. So say like you type in your password and then you need to send an email code or something afterwards. And it uses the multi-factor authentication, uses combinations like passwords, biometrics, passcodes, like sending codes through various methods, special apps, and whatnot. And then two-factor authentication is a very common form of multi-factor authentication. And this is different from single-factor authentication, where single-factor is that there's only one method, say like a fingerprint or a passcode or a password or something like that. So what are authenticator apps? So these are apps that add an extra layer of security to your accounts if you choose to set them up. And the app can be synced to the service that you're trying to secure. And the way they work is that it generates a random code that the user must enter correctly along with their password in order to access their account. And these are pretty secure because the codes change frequently. And then what's also nice is that these apps work offline and are free to use. And one last thing to note is that these are like a relatively new creation, where they've only been around for the past 10, 15 years, not even that really. So next we're going to talk about some security considerations to consider when using authenticator apps. So some security benefits is that authenticator apps, they use long randomly generated codes, and these codes change frequently, usually about every 30 seconds or so. And then so these codes are very secure and very hard to how to get access to and randomly guess. And then another thing is that the code, if you somehow intercept the code, it can't be used to discover the secret key. So you say you somehow intercept the code, then you can't really do much with that. So it won't provide any information other than this is what the code is at this certain time. And then these work offline, so these are not vulnerable to risks that might be associated with being connected to the internet. And then it's also more secure than using email, SMS to send codes, which are more susceptible to being intercepted and having those codes used against the user. Now there are some security risks with this, but most of these risks are very minor and not really something that you should be concerned about really. One is that the hacker could get lucky and correctly guess the code, but at that point it's basically like winning the lottery. So it's very low risk. And then the code could also be intercepted, but the hacker would need to act quick before the code changes, because like I said before, the code changes every 30 seconds or so. So if they could intercept it quickly, they would need to quickly enter the code somehow. So it wouldn't be an easy thing to do. And another security risk, and this one's a bit more significant, is that you're placing trust in the organization that made the app. So there's always the potential for a disgruntled employee or a data breach. So when you're using these apps, you all make sure you're using a trustworthy organization that is good at has a good commitment to protecting information. And then one last thing is that with anything in security, nothing's 100% secure, and there's always some unknown vulnerabilities waiting to be discovered and exploited. And lastly, we're going to talk about the why and how for our organization implementing these authenticator apps. So my recommendation is that we use Microsoft Authenticator, which is a free mobile app from Microsoft, and these can be used to implement MFA to protect many accounts. And it can also be configured to protect endpoints, so like computers and phones. You can require like a code to access like a Windows login or something like that. And then you can use it for multiple accounts, either like for accounts like access through the phone or like through another device like a computer or something. So it's very versatile in that way. And then the way it works, it uses like a one-time passcode or like a push notification for approval. Another thing too is that these require authentication with every sign-on attempt. And the encrypted cloud backup feature that it also has allows it for easy transfer between devices. So if an employee gets a new phone, they can easily transfer their data from their old device to their new device. That's also pretty helpful to have. So why should our organization use authenticator apps? So for one, it's an additional layer of security for our computers and accounts. That way, if a password gets compromised, or it won't be easy for attackers to just get in with just the password. And this provides a minimal inconvenience to users. Like there's a big debate in security between like convenience and security and where the line is. But like having it just be a code that you just type in, like, and it's like on your phone, just makes it like a very minimal inconvenience to people who have to log in. So that way, it's not as difficult as like other security methods. And then authenticator apps are also more secure than sending codes through SMS and email, because like I said before, like these are vulnerable to interception, and they could be used to uh, like grab the code and get in before the legitimate user does. And then lastly, a lot of people like get kind of creeped out about like biometrics and like fingerprint and like face scanning and all that. And authenticator apps don't really have these same privacy concerns, because instead of using like a fingerprint or like a face scan, it's just using a code. So a lot of people won't be as freaked out about it as they might be with more secure methods like biometrics. Now, how should our organization use these? Well, my recommendation is that all employees should have to install Microsoft Authenticator either on like their own personal phone or on a company phone that we could provide to them. And then we also require authentication when logging into their computer and work account. Another thing too is that for IT staff, we should require authentication for them attempting to access admin permissions. This is just an additional layer of security, so that way they have to be verified like twice. That way, if they it's unlikely that a hacker will be able to mess up our network and whatnot. Yeah, so that's about the end of my presentation. Hope I convinced you that we should be using authenticator apps, and I really think that these could benefit our organization. And thank you for your time, and have a good rest of your day.